Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here this morning. Last spring, in a similar hearing to this one, I voiced my concern to Ambassador Lighthizer about using national security as a basis for trade restrictions, since this action could lead to retaliation if another nation follows suits and restricts its imports of U.S. products like sorghum and soybeans using the same rationale. While it's a good step to implement an exemption process that many members here requested for our allies and trading partners following the proposed steel and aluminum tariffs, my concerns have only grown, especially since other nations are indeed preparing a retaliation list targeting farm products.
Right.
Now, Mr. Secretary, you have made comments recently about farm families and ranchers who, I quote, scream and yell when their nerves get rattled by the administration, and you mentioned that they even go so far as to write to their member of Congress. You may not be aware, however, that the state of Kansas just last week declared a statewide drought emergency for all 105 counties, or that blizzards roll through at a moment's notice, or that we have had multiple years of large wildfires, some which have blazed an area many times larger than the entire District of Columbia. Kansans depend on selling their products abroad. The value of all Kansas ag exports total $3.7 billion, even with a state with a population of fewer than 3 million Kansans. Ag represents 7 of the top 10 exported products from our state. This includes wheat, which is one of the second most valuable international exports from Kansas, trailing only our plain manufacturing. And prior to NAFTA, Mexico imported an average of 11.5 million bushels of wheat from the U.S. After NAFTA, we have seen a nearly 10-fold increase to 110 million bushels. And on the national scale, half of the wheat grown in the United States is exported, so half of growers' market is foreign consumers. So my constituents' livelihoods depend on both Mother Nature and foreign markets. So I'm just curious, why do you think American farmers and the ag industry are so nervous when it comes to NAFTA or sudden tariffs? And do you know how many American agriculture heartland, how much they depend on these exports?
Well, I'll answer very briefly. First of all, there's no sign that any of these other countries have practiced restraint before we invoke national security. They are doing what they wish to do. Every other country that I'm aware of is much more highly protectionist than the U.S. They all talk free trade, and they all practice very protectionist activities.
Mr. Secretary,